Hi, so we're going to be having a look in this session at lesson one from dot B. Hi, Richard. I know that
Hi, Fay.
you've been delivering these lessons this week, haven't you, with your
I have. That might be why I just see myself on the screen. I look so tired. That might
uh,
be it.
I wonder what my excuse is.
Just do this. I'll be fine.
So how have things gone with teaching the lesson one to, you've got two different groups, haven't you?
Yeah, and actually, what was interesting this week is that I had them at such different times. So I had one on a Tuesday morning, and I had one on a Saturday morning because we have Saturday school, and not only on a Saturday morning, but what we call period four on a Saturday, which is almost the last one, which is a shortened one just before sports fixtures. So it was, I just knew I'd have very little time and that the kids' heads would just be in a totally different space that they would be on Tuesday. So yeah,
Yeah.
I taught them very differently.
Yeah, I was just thinking sometimes I have that where I've taught after school sessions or lunchtime sessions can be a bit like that as well.
Mm.
It needs to be a bit different when you've got sort of curriculum, classroom time. Yeah, I get that. So how is it different then?
So in the first one, if I can share my screen with you, I can't remember whether I'd said what software I used to do this, but I used this thing called Mentimeter.
Hmm.
And I did a sort of, why might you want to learn mindfulness? And they came in this particular group, sport was like the thing they were most interested in. And actually, I always use this little image of Haaland. I don't know how clearly you can see that because he meditates regularly. And as it happened on that Tuesday, it was perfect because on the weekend before, on the Sunday before, Man City had beaten Man United 3-0. And Haaland had celebrated his second goal. He'd had to stay so composed during that goal that after scoring it, he just ran into the corner and got himself into his meditation posture. So I
Nice.
was able to freeze it right there with him meditating
Mm.
as kind of one of the best ways of introducing the whole concept of mindfulness that worked. And then just before that, actually, what I also did was this in the Mentimeter, because it's anonymous, I
Mm.
also got them to feed back their hopes and fears about the course. And these were some of the responses that came up. And I just talked about these. I thought they were really interesting. Not sure we'll see where it takes me because I love that attitude. That's what I'm hoping for them to have. I hope it will help and not be boring. I said, look, it might be boring. It's okay to be bored. And we talked a bit about boring. And then I want to take a break from all the noise. I just thought that was nice because we
Mm.
talked about what do we mean by noise? Because noise can mean so many different things. And then from there, in this first lesson, then I went through the normal torch activity and then the puppy activity. Let me ask you back about the torch one, if I can manage to stop my recording here, because I found the torch for me in terms of teaching has kind of gone a bit in and out of fashion, depending mostly on which classroom I'm in. Because there are some classrooms where you can close the blinds easily and you can get it to be relatively dark or dark enough. There are other classrooms where you just can't do that, in which case the torch bit doesn't work. I don't know what's been your experience of that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, where just sometimes the light's not right to kind of demonstrate that really well. But I love the torch analogy. It's such a great one. And I think it's one of the things that's changed for me with using it is that we use it in dots as well with youngest children, but we also use the telescope. And so sometimes, even with older students, sometimes I've experimented with that as well of zooming in, zooming out, and noticing the difference in the way that you're paying attention to things. But in dots, we do this very much this kind of focusing attention. We've got shining on us on the body, and when our attention moves away, and then when it comes back again. So we build on that
Mm,
example.
interesting. Then I mentioned the second time I taught it, which was on that Saturday. I did a bit of a trade off, to be honest, and I guess this is being a bit naughty, but you know how when you're teaching, if you can give them things to do, you can leave them to get on with something quietly. But you might have just one thing you want to do in that lesson. The only thing I really wanted to do and sort of get from this group in that lesson was just do one relatively short playing attention lesson. And then crucially, to get them to feed back. And what I've done is I've made this kind of .b booklet, and I've pulled the highlights from the worksheets and put them in here. And the one thing I've done with the puppy training with this lesson is, there's a page about puppy and why the mind's like a puppy. But the crucial thing is this one, which is partly to get them to just make a note of where they're able to notice sensation, if anywhere. But then these are the crucial ones for me, those words there, because one of those words is unpleasant. And that for me is my way of being trauma sensitive in a way which is easy for them to express, easy for me to see, but will flag up relatively quickly whether somebody is struggling with what we're doing in the class. There was one kid in this one, there were a couple of kids that put unpleasant. And when I asked them to get on with some work afterwards, it was a pretty loose atmosphere. And so we did the practice, probably about 10 minutes. Quite a nice vibe, got a bit of feedback, but then let them get on with their own work, but talk as well. So the volume in the classroom was up a bit, which was good because it meant I could go over to the person who said it was unpleasant, one of the two, and say, was that kind of like really horrible unpleasant or just a bit, just not great? And of the two, I just sensed with one of them, who I know is an ADHD, that maybe he was struggling a bit with it. So what I'll do in the next lesson with the FOFBOT one is just kind of keep more of an eye on him on that one. And there is another, I do pretty much the same thing on that one with the same boxes. And what I'll do is if I see that he's ticked unpleasant again, I might try and find a way of checking in with him about that, just to check this isn't really unpleasant for him.
So what you're saying is that this student has ADHD, and so it might have been for those reasons that they found it unpleasant, but you're going to sort of like check in on the next one to make sure that that is what it is rather than something more. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think some people just find it difficult to sit still. I don't know whether.
Yeah, totally. What options do you normally give for that?
I normally give an option just to move during the class. So either to sway or to move their feet or to play with their hands or to do a simple this or to do the finger breathing is quite helpful. So I might teach them the finger breathing. If I was giving them those instructions, obviously what I do is speak to the whole class. So I wouldn't say, oh, you have ADHD and you might do this. I would say, if you find being still difficult, try these things to give them options. And I would encourage, I wouldn't say, but be quiet, I would encourage them to say, I'd say, if you could just do your best not to disturb others, I'd be really grateful. But, don't feel free to move around if you need to. What do you have?
I have said to you before that I sort of invite young people to stand at the back if they want to move more than just a little bit. So I just say, look, if you really want to be able to explore that movement a bit more, feel free to be at the back of the room so that you're not in front of anyone else and not in their eye line as you're doing your practice. But also sometimes using a fidget toy, as long as it's not disruptive and noisy for other people, and have that as your focus can be another way of kind of helping them access the practice, because that's what we're trying to help them do, isn't it? Just be able to give it a go, but in a way that works for them, a little bit like we're suggesting for people with this set of videos, finding their own way.
And I forgot to mention one thing, actually, Faye, if I can just share a different screen. I remember that when I saw that I was likely to be teaching this Saturday session before sport in the lesson before that, and I said, look, on Saturday, I'm going to see you. Let's just stop and notice what's happening here. And that is an important spin to make that morning, because you actually don't, I mean, you wouldn't do this as a good mindfulness teacher anyway, but sometimes I think they come into this thing thinking, we should be being calm, we should be being chill, we should be, it's sort of, it can have that calm, chill vibe. But actually on a Saturday morning, actually they don't necessarily want to be like that. So because they've got a match and they're excited about that, or it's a Saturday, so they're going home and it's fun. And so actually to put any sense that calmness is, it just feels wrong. So what I try and encourage them to do is to say, look, let's just stop and notice. How are we feeling at the moment? Are we quite psyched? Are we hyped? Are we energized? Are we tired? and give them the range of things that they might be feeling, so they don't feel like they should be in any way. And this slide it's the slide from the first lesson, because this .b slide, it's got this little question mark here, which pops up in the dot. And I'll say that what we're trying to do is just stop and notice what is happening. Feel your feet on the floor, feel your breathing, and be whatever that means for you right now. And that was quite a nice way of also cueing in the values of .b.
Yeah, lovely. I like that. I mean, I think that the check-in on the stopping is such a valuable thing, isn't it? Because it's not about getting to anywhere either. It's kind of just saying this is what's here right now.
You've taught this lesson a lot too. Is there anything else you noticed about session 1 or that you'd like to share?
It's one of my favourite lessons because I absolutely love both the talk analogy and the puppy. It's just the starting points for beginning to notice where our focus is, where our attention is, and lots of the really lovely early learning comes out of this session around there being no right or wrong, that you are how you are, and even kind of like feeling fidgety or having lots of movement, all of that can be normalized in this session. So yeah, I don't tend to deviate too much, to be honest, in this lesson from what's actually there. It's just such a lovely introduction. As we've said in other videos, you know your students, so it might be like you have done with your 2 groups. They needed different things because of when they were being taught in the week. And so, the invitation is there if you want to try offering it in a different way, and do that.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'll see you next week, lesson 2.
Yeah, see you for lesson 2. Thank you.